Welcome to the podcast, Entrepreneur Perspectives, building and protecting your business one podcast at a time, a CASOurce family production. In this episode, we discuss floating, how to market a unique business, and relaxation. Our guest today is Tyler Johnson. Tyler is the founder and owner of First Float. First Float is a wellness center helping individuals reach their next level in performance. First Float focuses on three main areas of relaxation and healing: massage therapy, flotation therapy, and halotherapy. First Float services are centered around float therapy. Tyler walks us through exactly what float therapy is in this podcast. Tyler is from Indianapolis, Indiana, and recently moved to the Charlotte area where he now runs his business. First Float is located in Huntersville, North Carolina. Let's bring in Tyler. Tyler, welcome to Entrepreneur Perspectives Podcast. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me, Eric.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming all the way down to the south side of Charlotte. It's like two different cities, right? You got North Charlotte and you got South Charlotte.
It is.
And it's, I always wonder when I go to North Charlotte, I feel like I'm in a new city. But it's connected, all good people on both sides of it. We're here to talk about flotation therapy, your journey, all the things that go around with it. Mm-hmm. So let's kind of take it very back to the basics of the question a lot of people might have: what is flotation therapy?
Yeah, so flotation therapy, or commonly referred to as sensory deprivation therapy, is where you're in an environment that is completely cut off from all external stimuli. And so what that means is no light, no sound, no sense of touch, and you're basically put in that environment through what's called a float tank. That float tank is filled with about 110 gallons of water with about 800 pounds of Epsom salt. With all that Epsom salt in there, it creates pretty much a gravityless experience. So there's no force or anything like that pushing down on the body, which allows the muscles and everything to just completely relax. Being that there's no external stimuli happening, that essentially allows the mind to really let go and disconnect and enter a very, very deep state of relaxation as well.
Wow, so did you say 800 pounds of Epsom salt?
800 pounds.
Okay.
Yep.
So when someone floats and that 800 pounds of Epsom salt's there, do you change the water, the salt? Like, how does that work? Or is there so much salt in there that any bacteria, anything that people might say, well, I don't want to do it because of that, is that all cleaned out?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So one, like you said, yes, there is so much salt in there that the likelihood of any bacteria growing is extremely minimal. But we do offset that through a very heavy filtration system, and then treat it with a few different chemicals as well. So sanitation is definitely
it's a big part of
number one priority whenever it comes to.
And it's probably a question you guys have to. Any business has objections, right? Mm-hmm. And you have to handle those objections, and those are the types of things that you probably get a lot.
Absolutely, all the time.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So flotation therapy, kind of understand a little bit what it is now, but let's take us back a little bit. Mm-hmm. When did you know that you wanted to run your own business?
So that it really hit me back whenever I was working in Yellowstone National Park, probably about 7 years ago or so. I kind of always had a little bit of an inkling of starting a business, but never really wanted to pursue it. And then while I was out there, I got fed up with how slow corporations move.
Yeah. Like,
there's so many people that have phenomenal ideas, but it would just take so much time for anything to start moving. And so at that point, I was like, all right, I got to just get out there and do it myself.
Yeah.
So
you saw an opening that it was frustration from the way corporate America, just businesses in general, moved, mm-hmm. to say you got the itch. You said, I have to make this happen myself. So it's almost like I have to get, I got to get up to bat. Mm-hmm. Is that kind of what it was? And then from that standpoint, was it like that epiphany? Like, you're at Yellowstone, you're thinking through this is probably over culmination of many days, many weeks, many months, right? Mm-hmm. And said, I got to go make this happen. And then did you go and find a business to purchase? Did you start brand new? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, so the thought was in the back of my head, and it wasn't until a friend of mine that introduced me to the Amway opportunity shortly after that. And Amway, good old-fashioned MLM, And that was my introduction into kind of the business world.
Okay.
And one thing through, trying to build my big empire and all that fun stuff, was a lot of insight into the different books and things like that were offered to us, like Napoleon Hill, Dale Carnegie, John Maxwell, all these thought leaders that really shook my mind on, how we should be interacting in this world. And I ended up having a little bit of fallout with the business and just seeing how a lot of people just look at people as numbers. It's how many no's can you get in a day and everything else. And yes, I understand everything boils down to numbers, but at the end of the day, it's all about relationships.
Yep.
And so that's whenever I really started to dive in and ended up starting my own marketing company from that. Just, really wanting to build relationships and helping other people, express their relationships.
Gotcha. Well, it's funny too, you bring up Dale Carnegie, Napoleon Hill, and some others that they're influential to what I've been doing. It's funny, we did another podcast interview today, and he brought, the person we talked to was a business coach, and he brought up Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Yeah. And that was the book his father had given him that then led him, that he didn't read for many years because he was really young at the time. When he finally read it, he's like, it's all about relationships. It's about people and doing the right things and not just looking at it like a number. Numbers are important. Statistics are important, but it's bigger than that. Absolutely. And what we find fascinating is all the entrepreneurs that we talk to have this passion, have this drive, have somewhere in their past that they had what you had, is that inkling, and then something pushed it some more, and then you it leads you to these next steps that you're on and this journey that you're on, and it's exciting. And we're excited that you're here with us talking about this and having gone through this journey. I want to go we're going to bounce around a little bit because I love your journey of the entrepreneurship journey that you're on, but I also love this whole thing about floating. So talk to us a little bit more about floating. Who do you think should be floating? And what are the benefits that perhaps those people would get from floating? Yeah,
so just like with many therapies out there, I personally believe everybody should be floating. But at the end of the day, it really is for those who are trying to get the most out of life. So whether you're suffering from chronic pain and you're just trying to find, day-to-day relief, or you are a CEO that you're ahead of a $1 billion company and you're trying to make really tough decisions all the time, being in that type of environment that allows you to just kind of center yourself and be true to yourself to move the ball forward.
Okay. So so the benefits of it would then, you would center yourself, you would kind of come back to you would be in a relaxed state, you would come back to, if it's a CEO, if it's someone who's stressed out or someone who's in chronic pain, they have those issues, they go and float. Is it they leave there, they're going to have be in this most relaxed, place that they could possibly be, or does it culminate overdoing it many times?
Yeah, so it would be very similar to meditation. Your first few times meditating, you're probably crazy monkey mind, why am I sitting here wasting 10 minutes and everything else. But over time, you start to realize that self-introspective of, I am in control of myself.
Right.
I have reasons to be happy. I have reasons to be present and not focusing on the past or the future or anything like that.
Okay.
And I think one of the biggest benefits is, I like to tell folks, whenever you can cut everything external out of the equation, the only thing your mind has to focus on is everything internal. And so it can work on any kind of issues that you may be having internally. Okay.
How far has floating come over these last few years? In certain cities, in certain countries, it's going to more prevalent, right? In other cities that haven't gotten there yet, how far do you think it's come over the last 5 years or so?
Over the last 5 years, I think we're just now starting to really break into awareness.
Okay.
It started back in the 50s. It went underground shortly after that. And so now with this movement of, you know, natural health and holistic therapies and all of that, floating is now starting to kind of poke its head out again.
Okay. So, I want to get into the future of it and disruption in business, and not even floating, but in other businesses. But first, I want to kind of talk about the thing that we mentioned before is there's skepticism about anything. You know, we run a marketing business, we run an insurance business. We deal with skeptics all the time.
Right.
You know, how can you help my business? We deal with insurance. Well, I don't believe in insurance. I had a bad situation with insurance. Totally get it. So you have an industry that doesn't have the history. There is a history to it, but doesn't have the track record, the proven, where you can pull up stats maybe as much.
Right.
What do you say to people that are skeptics of floating?
I would say, one, figuring out what that skepticism is.
Yeah.
A lot of it is, you know, it may be just a straight fear of claustrophobia.
Okay.
And from that, you know, we have rooms available that kind of break that barrier. Another thing, people are honestly afraid to be alone by themselves. And so whenever I encounter folks like that, those are the ones that need it the most.
Okay. Would that be similar to like going out to lunch by yourself or being at home by yourself? Is it just isolation? Is a fear perhaps?
Being by yourself and your own thoughts.
Okay.
That's kind of where that would boil down to, I think. And a lot of that is just understanding that we all need to slow down and disconnect.
Okay.
At the end of the day, with anything health related, you've got to want to do it. And so if it's not something that really interests you, you know, I'm not going to sit here and you know try and force you to do it and everything.
Right.
But if you do have a little bit of interest, you know, it's a safe environment. It is a very unique environment that allows you to just really get in touch with yourself.
Yeah. And so with you, you're not trying to convince the unconvincible, I think is what you're saying, right? And I think that's a good strategy. We do the same thing. If we run across someone that's just is not a believer in what it is that we're talking about, that's okay, right? There's going to be differing opinions of it. But if you have someone there that is interested, how do you get them? So, okay, I may be a skeptic because I'm claustrophobic. And then or maybe a skeptic because this is kind of new to me. But I'm willing to listen, and I do want to talk about it because I've heard this is really good. How do you get me like to the next level? Is it get me into your place of business and sit in the isolation room? Is it then to perhaps do massage therapy because some people like that and they're willing to say, okay, I can do that. And then you kind of work your way up to maybe, I'm not saying floating is an advanced form of massage therapy, but is that a track to go down? Or what do you guys suggest for people that they're interested, but they're on the fence still?
I would say...
Or just jump right in the pool, like it's cold, but let's just go right in.
Yeah, it really is. You've got to jump in.
Okay.
It's such a unique experience that you can't really prep yourself for it. You've just got to try it.
Okay.
You know, massage and all of that, they all have their place, but when it comes to floating, you get out of it exactly what you personally need.
Okay.
You know, everybody's going to come out of that tank experiencing something 100% different.
Right.
So, you know, the biggest thing is, you know, a lot of us, we typically just share our experiences of what our first times were like.
Right.
So
could someone have a bad first experience and then come back a second, third, fourth time, and then they start, obviously it's different for everybody, because I've heard people, they didn't like it the first time, but they kept trying it, or they didn't like it the first time, but they understood why someone else might.
Right.
Is that what you see a lot?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It usually takes 3 to 4 floats to really understand the benefit that's taking place.
Okay.
Your first time, I typically refer to like a super cluttered desk, which is basically your mind. And so that first float is really just trying to take all that clutter and organize it.
Sure.
So you may spend 30, 45 minutes of an hour-long session, you know, feeling a little anxious, feeling the mind racing and all of that. And until it goes through that process and declutters itself, it won't ever get to the point where it can really relax and experience the full benefit.
Okay. Now, is floating becoming, so we're in Charlotte, we just talked about you're in the North Charlotte area or South Charlotte area. There's a couple places here in Charlotte, I believe. are you seeing the growth? Are you seeing awareness around it? Because I would imagine if someone floats at a different location, or they read about it in a magazine, or they hear about it on the news, or they see it on social media, that's good for everybody. It's awareness to the brand. Are you seeing more conversation around floating than you've seen in the past? Is that starting to pick up, at least here? I'm assuming if you go to cities like Los Angeles or I don't know, New York or other countries, it's going to be talked about a lot more.
Right.
But are you starting to see it more in a city like Charlotte?
Very slowly.
Okay.
We are seeing it more in like your CrossFit facilities and things like that. Particularly those who follow real closely with Joe Rogan. He talks about floating all the time. So unless you're a part of those circles, it really is something very few people know about.
Okay. So if people, I think one way that people could start knowing about it, if someone does go floating, they post it on social media so their friends would see it, and then that would be like, oh, I've heard of that, or what is that? That's kind of the conversation that needs to happen. It sounds like. Okay. So we've seen spa, therapeutic, the whole industry. There's a lot of changes in it, and you can go from anywhere from, we talked about massage therapy. You can talk about a chiropractor, just any type of salon work that someone might want done, relaxation, exercise. Right? You talked about that before. You talk about someone might go running. John might go running and absolutely hate it, and someone else might go running and just get this ultimate, let's call it the runner's high that they get from it. Everyone's gonna have a different experience. Anyway, there's just, and to kind of go all over the place, there's a lot of disruption in business, and that includes the spa industry. So people are saying, well, I want to look at the massage therapy business. Is floating disrupting that business? Is it a part of the disruption of that business, or what's going on in the spa industry today? Because there's a lot of places just in South Charlotte. We can go straight down McKee Ballantyne Commons Road, and we're going to run into a lot of different places that offer hotels and all that, and it's expensive. So it's a very high net worth, type of business where you need to have income to actually go and use it.
Right.
I'm all over the place, but you can kind of maybe help us understand it a little bit more with disruption in the spa industry.
Yeah, so floating, as far as being a disruptor, I think creating awareness and self-awareness would be a better term than disrupting. From the spa businesses and all of that, with the coming of age of natural healing and holistic therapies and all of that, we now have a culture that loves to ask the question, why?
Yeah.
And that's what's really disrupting these businesses, and will just continue to disrupt them. So instead of going to a spa for this nice fluff and puff, semi-relaxing day and everything, we're now seeing people that really want to come in, and yeah, they want to be relaxed, but they also want to know, why am I so tense?
Right.
Why am I feeling this pain? They really want to get down to the nitty gritty so that they can understand themselves even better and understand how to essentially prevent it from happening again.
Okay. You offer massage therapy services at First Float, is
Absolutely.
That right? Okay.
Yes.
Are there any other services that you offer?
We offer halotherapy or
Okay.
salt therapy.
Okay.
And then we also offer infrared therapy as well.
Okay, so let's back up. So halotherapy,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
is that? Yeah.
Yeah, so halotherapy or dry salt therapy, it's basically a very tranquil room that we have, and we spray a very fine powdered salt into the air.
Okay.
And so you're breathing that in to really clean out the respiratory system, open up the lungs, really helps break down any kind of congestion that's taking place, increases oxygen saturation, and decreases inflammation as well.
Okay, and then the next one was infrared?
Infrared therapy. Yeah.
Okay.
Infrared therapy's been around for a while. You've got a lot of like far infrared saunas and things like that. But basically, at First Float, we have infrared domes. Get up to about between 140, 160 degrees, and the infrared heat penetrates deeply into the muscle, whereas like a regular steam sauna or something like that is all dermal heat, so you're basically just heating up the skin, and it takes a much longer time to really heat the core. And so with the infrared heat, it basically heats those muscles from within to really help flush out toxins.
Okay.
So you're starting to sweat very profusely, really flush out those toxins, increases the heart rate a little bit, and kind of helps drive the metabolism a bit.
Okay. So if you go to a massage therapy place, and why would they not offer floating? Is it because you have to be licensed and there's a long process to actually even consider offering that versus massage therapy?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So not only getting licensed for it, but the overall build out, and the biggest thing is the maintenance. It's not like you can just set up a tub and you've got a float tank. You've got to constantly be on your water chemistry and making sure everything is on par.
Well, so I think like in that, as you see, there's massage therapy places everywhere now, and then you can get, you can buy packages and you pay monthly and you do all this and you show up and people have gone there and sometimes they get good service, sometimes they get really bad service, or sometimes it's in the middle. It's never exceptional.
Right.
I think they get you because they sign you up for a year contract, and that's where they make the residual income, which is smart in that regards. But I see them in getting interrupted in business because they're not offering these other services that you're offering, and your knowledge level of not floating, but all of it, the whole entire industry, is greater than what I think most people's would be. And not to call them out and throw them under the bus, there's a difference there. So your float is your central core of your business, but there's these other things that are also a big part of what you're doing.
Right.
So don't just get it confused. Like, you don't have to, if you don't want to float, don't float, but you can do these other things.
Right.
And maybe while you're there one time, oh, by the way, maybe you can try out floating. Do you see it the same way?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're all about wellness. And in terms of creating that wellness, it's different for everybody. And so trying to put somebody in one single box with one single modality, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's never worked.
Yeah.
And so just opening up those opportunities to get what you need at any given moment, and experiment with what you may have never been able to experiment with before.
Well, and you had said before, you didn't want it to be about the numbers. So if John shows up to your place, you want it to be about John.
Absolutely.
How do I help John out? And what conversations do you need to have with John and help him out this time? And then he comes back again and have more conversations, as opposed to if I go to Massage Envy or some of these other places. Again, I don't know. They might be great businesses for all I know. The idea is, how many people can we sign up? Right? How many franchises can we buy? What's the number? And do they care about their customers? I'm sure they do. Again, we're not talking about their business, just kind of creating that example of you're trying to bring in that one person and help them out, which I think is a big difference that we see. And then the level of knowledge that you partner that with, I think is important, and it obviously has proven itself out. So as you talk about this business, you mentioned before that you started your career or your business in marketing. How has that helped you in marketing this unique business?
I would say understanding the power of stories, and not only just telling stories, but telling your experience, and really kind of starting to create that platform of allowing others to really share their experience. We get a lot of transformational things that happen, and being able to share that, or allowing them to share whatever they just went through, creates a great sense of community.
Yeah. So that's a big one, and I think that's the focus for a lot of these industries, because some people might have a bad experience, and that's okay. Why did you have a bad experience? Did you ask before? Why? So let's get into that why. Why did you have a great experience with it? Tell other people about it. Let's create awareness together around this topic. And because these unique industries, this unique, floating, maybe I just have to learn more about it. Maybe I need more stories around it. And like you're saying, and that's where marketing's going right now, as you know, as your career started off with marketing, because we can tell a unique story, and that is the marketing. So it doesn't have to get too crazy. You don't have to convince people or twist them to get into to come to First Float.
Right.
A story did that for you. So I think that's pretty awesome. Well, we appreciate you coming here, talking about floating, talking about your journey that you've been on, that you continue on, I'm sure. It's not easy. You're in a market that's, maybe not quite there yet, but it's going in that direction. We go out to dinner quite a bit. My wife she's got intolerances, let's say gluten, for example, and a lot of restaurants in Charlotte aren't prepared for that.
Right.
You go to other cities, you go to Asheville, you go to Portland, Maine, and they're like, does anyone have a dairy allergy? Does anyone have this? And they talk, oh yeah, we'll take care of it. You say it here, they're like, you don't want sauce on your food? Like, how would that work? You're like, don't worry about it. We'll deal with that.
Yep.
But I think it just goes in with the different towns, the different cities that you live in, and some are more progressive in that area versus some other ones. And I think float therapy is, as you would probably agree, is getting there. It's slowly but surely, right?
Absolutely.
So we appreciate you talking about all these things, because I know it's important not only for your business, and I would encourage anyone that's even thinking about float therapy to absolutely at least have a conversation with you, to go check out your facilities and see it for yourself, and ask around, has anyone else floated, and look on social media, because it's definitely being talked about a lot more.
Right.
So appreciate you doing all that. What we'd like to do now is, you gave us a lot of the detailed answers behind it all, kind of go a little bit more rapid fire on you for some questions. If you need to take it down a path, that's okay too. So you ready for that?
Absolutely.
All right, let's
make
do it.
happen.
All right, so Tyler, you own Float Therapy. Do you float daily?
About 3 to 5 times a week.
Okay.
I'll float.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've been around, right? You talked about Yellowstone, and I'm sure you've been to other places. What is your favorite city to travel to?
Right now, Denver. I've only been there a handful of times.
Yeah.
But there's something about that city that just feels very, very well.
Yeah, it's a great town. Great town. There's a lot of places around Denver you can venture out to as well. So now you're in Charlotte. You're in North Charlotte, what we talked about. What is your favorite thing about the Charlotte area?
I would say the pace of Charlotte. We came from Indianapolis, which wasn't a big city, but you had the fast-paced agriculture mind. But here in Charlotte, it is a little bit slower pace, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, nice balance, right?
Yep,
yeah, absolutely. Which makes sense with what your business is, right?
Yep.
Keep some balance to your life. All right, so when you travel to Denver, wherever you'll, maybe you go back to Indianapolis, you have to kill time, and maybe kill time other ways. What is your favorite thing to do to kill time?
Probably travel down research rabbit holes.
Yeah.
So just, getting a thought in my head and just seeing how much I can learn about it in a short amount of time.
Is that a little bit where your love for float therapy came about, perhaps? I mean, obviously we talked about
Absolutely,
it before.
100%.
So you just went down that because you have this knowledge. It's like, wow, I've never talked to someone who's had this much knowledge on this topic before.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It makes sense. Yeah, we talk to these entrepreneurs, and John knows this, but there's this commonality, and there's this theme throughout their entire life, and there's just these checkpoints, and it's like, I get it now. Like, it makes total sense with just like you wanting to experience new things and learn new things and try different things. Like, it all kind of blends together.
Right.
It's cool to see it. All right, so now I'm going to take you out of the floating therapy business. You can't be in anymore. What business, what career would you be in?
Most definitely marketing, if not medical research.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. But so you have marketing. You talk about social media a little bit. Social media changes all the time. It's not yesterday. It's not tomorrow. It's today. What's your favorite social media app today?
From a business, Instagram for sure. Personally, an app called All Trails.
Okay.
It's a great app if you're trying to figure out where to get out and go hiking, backpacking, take the dog or whatever. It's a great community to figure out.
That's cool. We have not heard of that one, and we will absolutely check it out. That's awesome. So you're researching a lot. I'm sure you read a lot. If you had to read, or do you read, on a book or a Kindle app or Kindle device?
A book all the way.
All the way.
Yep.
Okay. Hardcover, paperback, doesn't matter?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yep.
Try to narrow that down. That's good. And you do read a lot, I'm sure. So now we're going to read or listen. So if I gave you 30 minutes and you could read a lot of podcasts, read a lot of blogs in 30 minutes or listen to a podcast for 30 minutes, what would you do?
Podcast.
Okay.
Yep.
Multitask kind of would do things, or just like hearing and getting the vibe a little bit?
With a podcast, I can listen to it at a much faster pace and really just kind of get into that flow state whenever I listen, and just absorb a lot more information in a shorter amount of time.
Okay, so I love that. So that's something that you hit on for me. So you said a faster pace. What speed do you listen to podcasts at?
Usually about 1.5, depending upon what the podcast is. Sometimes
how fast they're going.
1.75.
Yeah. Okay, cool. No, I'm the same way. So I did one for a while, and then a few years ago I went to 1.5, and I've actually gone to 2. And it does depend, and sometimes I'll slow it down. But if I have headset in, I can definitely do 2. And once you get used to it, like you said, you get in that flow, and it just can't stop you. So I love hearing other people say that same thing. All TV watching and taking in media, would you watch Netflix or cable satellite?
Netflix.
Okay.
Yeah.
The last one it's big on us. It's sports. We love sports. I'm not sure if you're a big sports fan or not. So you answer this any way you want. But if you could only have one sports team to root for the rest of your life, what team would that be?
Yeah, so I'm not a big sports guy.
Yeah.
And so being new, we're just gonna kick it and go Panthers.
Go Panthers, local team, right?
Yeah,
get the community going,
Exactly.
which is a big thing. And we talked about it. The sports brings people together as it starts to downpour right now,
Yep.
like through the hurricane, but which is very balancing. But when the Panthers went to the Super Bowl, it was amazing how the community came together. And I think it helps local businesses. So you saying that makes a lot of sense because it's just, let's support Charlotte. Let's support the Carolinas.
Yep.
So it makes a lot of sense. Well, Tyler, again, like I said before, I appreciate you spending the time coming down from North Charlotte to be in our office to talk about float therapy. Obviously, have a lot of knowledge on that topic, and I'm sure a lot more. Now we have some new trail app to explore because you've been here. So again, thank you a lot for being here. Now tell us this, what's the best way? You said Instagram. What's the best way to learn about you and float therapy?
So I'm just all over First Float, so you can find us on Instagram or Facebook at First Float. Definitely check out the website. We're trying to put up as many research articles as we can, firstfloat.com. And that's probably going to be some of the best ways to interact with us for sure.
Awesome. Well, we'll put that in the show notes. And again, like I said, do appreciate your time, your knowledge, and it's great to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for having me on.
Absolutely. Tyler, it was absolutely awesome having you on this podcast. From the knowledge Tyler has on floating to his efforts he puts in daily, Tyler is an entrepreneur that inspires and literally keeps you relaxed. The perspectives from Tyler on starting and running a unique business and having incredible insights about his work are now perspectives you as a business owner and entrepreneur can use for yourself. And for that, Tyler, thank you. And for anyone looking to learn more about flotation therapy, feel free to contact Tyler. You can visit their website at firstfloat.com. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. You can contact me on Twitter at Eric_Kaz or with the same name on Instagram, or you can find us at KazSource.com with links to us on the different social networks. Thank you for listening to our KazSource podcast, Entrepreneur Perspectives, building and protecting your business one podcast at a time. Until next time, we're out of here. This podcast exists in large part because of KazCM, the content marketing business inside KazSource Inc. KazCM is excited to bring the content marketing services used at KazSource to you. Learn more by visiting KazCM.com. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. It's a big deal to us. We hope you found value in it, and if you did, we would be incredibly grateful if you gave us a review on iTunes. Remember to subscribe to this podcast and feel free to share it with anyone you know. More than anything, thank you again for listening. We appreciate it.